Hey there. Hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, if you are new, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna and I have another true crime case for you today. Just my usual disclaimer that for some reason I forgot to put in my last two videos. This is all information that I have found online that I've compiled into a video for educational and entertainment purposes. Definitely let me know what you think about this video in the comment section down below. It is quite an interesting one, extremely tumultuous story about the unfortunate death of Nikki Whitehead. So without further ado, let's get started. Nikki Whitehead didn't have a conventional childhood. She was born in 1975 to her mother, who was actually incarcerated at the time due to drug possession charges, and she actually was raised by her grandmother, where she didn't have a lot of rules, she didn't have a lot of regulation, and she was in large part able to do what she wanted. She was able to come and go as she pleased, and she didn't have many complaints about her childhood except for the fact that there wasn't much structure, there wasn't any accountability in her home. She kind of didn't have that guidance and that figure to point her in the right direction. And when she was 17 years old, she actually found out that she was pregnant, and shortly thereafter found out that she was pregnant with twins, who she named Tasmia and Jasmia, and for short they go by Taz and Jazz. They are two twin baby girls who are absolutely beautiful. In the beginning of their lives, Nikki wasn't the most present parent. She, in similar fashion to how she was raised, kind of wasn't as present with her kids, and she expresses later down the line that, you know, she wished she was there more in the beginning. But in their early years, they were raised by Nikki's grandmother, so their great grandmother, and kind of had similar life. They didn't have many rules, they didn't have much structure, they were able to come and go as they pleased, and they were beautiful and smart girls, but they were used to this life where they didn't really have to answer to anyone. But when they were 13 years old in 2007, Nikki decided that she wanted to turn her life around, and in doing so, get her girls on the right track as well and keep them on a steady path, so that as they got older, they didn't end up pregnant at a really young age like she did, or going down a wrong path. So when they were 13, she moved them to another city in Georgia, where she actually was moving in with her boyfriend at the time, and she really wanted to make a change. She really wanted to turn things around. So she got them involved in extracurricular activities. She had a curfew for them. She would put them on punishment when they did things that were not up to her standards. And she, like I said, was really trying to become a better and more present parent. Now, 13 is an age where, as young girls, they were gonna probably give pushback to any parent, but especially to Nikki, because she really wasn't present in the way, like I expressed, that she wanted to be in the beginning of their lives. So for her to come in, kind of start making more rules, to pick them up and move them away from all of their friends, it was something that was extremely uncomfortable for them, and they didn't respond well to it. They did give Nikki pushback, but she did a pretty good job. She had them, they were on the honor roll, so they were performing in school. She had them in Girl Scouts, they took music classes, they took dance classes, and Nikki was feeling really proud and really good about the way that things were going. There were little spats here and there between the girls and Nikki, but in large part, she was really proud of the progress that she had made with them. Once the girls entered high school, things kind of started to get a little bit more rocky, with Nikki putting the girls on punishment or telling them that they needed to be home by a certain time, telling them that it was inappropriate as 14-year-old girls to be dating 17-year-old boys. And Nikki was really trying to create rules that in a normal household are completely understandable, but the twins, and especially when they worked together, they really gave Nikki a hard time, and it just started to kind of snowball over the years as they were going through high school, with them being put on punishment or getting their cell phone taken. They would argue with their mother, but they would also get physical with their mother at times. It wasn't as kumbaya of a situation as Nikki had hoped that it would end up being. And at some point, she actually started to be concerned about the two of them working against her. There was an incident where the girls actually attacked Nikki, and they left her in a really bad condition. They left her with scratches and bruises all over her chest and her neck. And Nikki called the police, and she called for help. And when the police arrived to the home, Nikki was absolutely hysterical, telling them that her twins attacked her and trying to explain to the police that this was all about power. This was all because the girls wanted to move back with their great-grandmother and were not accepting of the fact that Nikki was now the parent and that they had to listen to her. And she basically explained to police, like, look, this isn't a situation where I'm abusing my children. This is literally just they don't want to accept the rules, and I'm not going to have it. And, you know, they're going to live in my house. They're not moving back, and they're going to follow and respect the boundaries that I have in place for them. But as Nikki was explaining this, she was absolutely hysterical and just shaken with fear. Like, the police could tell that this was not a normal family dynamic, that this is probably something that they're going to have to follow up on. But the girls, you know, apologized to their mother, and they said they were just going to go into their room for the night. So police did think that it was okay to just leave them be. Nikki went back into the house. Taz and Jazz went back into the house. And the police officer that actually responded to this call is like concerned. So she decides that she's not going to actually leave the property. So she sits outside for a couple minutes while she's on her computer, and she's just listening out, and she hears screaming coming from inside the house. So the girls told the police officer that they were just going to go to bed. There was nothing for the police to worry about. They were going to leave their mom alone for the night. They would talk maybe in the next day. And after the police left, so the girls thought, they attacked their mother again, and it was just a terrible situation that involved them being arrested, and they were now involved in the juvenile courts. They had to go to family therapy. It was just a big mess. And while the police that responded to the scene were concerned, you know, they were like, what is going on? This is a family that is attacking each other, beating each other up. Twin girls that look so innocent and cute and have everything that they want. They have designer clothes. They have all the bags that they want. They're attacking their mother because she has rules. And it made them scratch their heads, but they had absolutely no idea what was to come for this family and for Nikki Whitehead. On the afternoon of January 13, 2010, Taz and Jazz come home to a pretty quiet house, and they walk into the home and they are not ready for what they are about to see. They walk into the kitchen and they see blood all over the place, and at this point they're frantic because they don't know where their mother is. It's, like I said, really, really quiet in the house, and they make their way through the house and they find their mother in the bathtub, in water mixed with blood. She is very clearly deceased. She has stab wounds all over her body, and they call for help, and they are absolutely hysterical. Nikki was stabbed 80 times with a kitchen knife. She was strangled with some sort of rope or string, and she had been hit over the head with a large ceramic pot. And she was in a really, really bad condition. Police described her murder to be a crime of passion. It wasn't a random strike from someone that didn't know her. It very clearly was a murder done by someone who was close to Nikki. Hysterics is one of the best ways to describe this entire case. They were crying, they were screaming, they couldn't believe that they had found their mom in this condition. So the police's first instinct is to take the girls down. They are traumatized from what they've seen, so the police want to console them, make them feel better, and hopefully get some information as to who would want to hurt their mother. Police look into Taz and Jazz's father, who is not really involved in their life, and he actually lives in Canada with a wife and a second family that he has, and they look into maybe if he was involved in it somehow, but he had a very solid alibi. He was nowhere near the home at the time of Nikki's death, and the police talk to Taz and Jazz, and they say, well, who else could it possibly be? Because if it's not your father, who else is involved in her life? And Taz and Jazz let the police know that Nikki actually has her boyfriend, and she actually has a second one on the side. Forgive me if I'm saying that incorrectly, because I don't know if she was actually married to the man that she was living with or engaged to him, but her primary partner, and according to Taz and Jazz, she had a second partner that she was seeing on the side. And Taz and Jazz basically told police, like, maybe they found out about each other and one of them lost their mind and attacked her mom. And the police say, okay, that actually could be a pretty solid motive for this case. So they actually do pursue this lead seriously. They look into it and they begin trying to find any evidence or motive to put the puzzle pieces together. While police are pursuing this, they are certainly not putting all of their eggs in this basket, the hearsay of the twins. They are still scouring through the crime scene, trying to find DNA evidence of any sort, trying to find CCTV footage of any sort that can help them figure out exactly the ins and outs of Nikki's death. And while they're doing this, they start realizing that some of the things that the twins are telling them in their initial conversations with them aren't making sense. When police got to the house of Nikki Whitehead, there was blood literally everywhere. In every room of this house, there was blood. When you walked in, you could smell the blood. That's how much that there was. It was in the living room. It was in everywhere. And something that the girls told police was that when they walked into the house, it was quiet, but they didn't notice anything until they got into the kitchen where they first saw the blood. And police thought that this was odd because, like I said, there was blood literally in every room. They had to walk over the blood in the living room to get to the kitchen. So this was a part of their story that didn't make a lot of sense to begin with. In addition to this, while there was blood on most of the house, the sinks were completely clean, and not just clean, like they were clearly scrubbed clean, like after spring cleaning type of clean. The bathroom sink, the kitchen sink, all of the sinks were clean in the house, which was very suspicious. Obviously a sign that someone might be trying to get rid of evidence. And not only this, when police are scouring through the home, they find shoes, regular shoes, right? Like I told you, the girls had a lot of designer and cute clothes that they had. They had nice boots, they had Timberland high heels, like they had everything. Police find blood on multiple pairs of shoes in the house that are in the backs of closets. And this is weird because if it was a random intruder, they're not going to attack Nikki in multiple pairs of shoes and then hide all of these shoes in random parts of the house. That would make absolutely no sense, right? So police are like, why would there be blood on more than one pair of shoes that are in hidden spots, one of which actually was in a shoebox in a drawer? So that had police like, okay, now we're actually getting really suspicious. And they didn't want to say it outright, but they were pretty soon after the initial trauma had worn off from the girls, beginning to think that Taz and Jazz may have been involved in this more than they were letting on. When taken down to the police station, the girls had on gloves, which wasn't necessarily odd at first because it is the middle of January, even though it's down south, so it's not that cold. But the girls had on gloves, and once they're sitting in basically what is an interrogation room, even though the police are trying their best not to make it feel like an interrogation, they asked them, can you take the gloves off? Because we're not accusing you of anything, but we do need to can you just take the gloves off? And when the girls take the gloves off, what do you know? One of the twins has scratches all over her hand, and one of her fingers was severely cut at the top, almost the whole way across. There were like cuts on the top of the hand. Like it was clear that the injuries to this twin's hand were from a struggle. So when the police asked her, what happened to your hand? She says, oh, I got in a fight with my sister. Red flag number one. And one of the things that one of the twins was doing was, and please forgive me because they look exactly alike, so I have trouble distinguishing who was Tez and who was Jazz, but one of the twins basically in the beginning was extremely nervous and was fidgeting, and she was biting her arm. And when police asked her, hey, why are you doing that? She told the police it's something that she does when she gets nervous. She bites her skin on this one spot on her arm. So while that was kind of odd, police didn't think that much of it at first, but once they saw that her hands were all cut up and they were slowly putting all the pieces together from the crime scene, they're like, there might be more to this biting story than we actually are aware of. Something that was very interesting to police was that Taz and Jazz told the exact same story. They woke up that day, they were a couple minutes late for school, and that was the reason that they missed the school bus, but they actually were able to get to school without missing any of their classes. And police, since they're suspicious of the girls at this point, they decide just to verify from CCTV footage. They find CCTV footage from the town as well as from the school, and the girls told the police that they walked to school that day, which the police were able to very quickly debunk, because the girls were seen walking part of the way, but then hitchhiking with someone from a gas station the rest of the way to school. And they were seen getting to school mid-morning. 10:37 a.m. is when they actually walked into their high school building, which is 3 hours after they told police that they had gotten there, and which makes it impossible for them to have made all of their classes, which they also told police. So as you can see, there's little things. It's just building up over time. It's circumstantial evidence, some things that are just a little bit weird, but then they find them in this blatant lie. And at this point, police are they're 100% on their case. They know that the killer that they're looking for isn't her current boyfriend or husband. It's not her side piece. It's most likely her twins. So the police say, you know what? We're gonna put the pressure on them. So the police, they know exactly what they need to do to put the pressure on the twins. Their entire life, what did they have? Each other. They never separated from each other. They had the same DNA. They were one. And the police knew that the way to crack them was to separate them. So they take one of the twins, put them in one room, Taz is in one room, Jazz is in the other room. And as you might imagine, when the police first tell them that they are going to separate them, they don't respond well to this, but the police try to act like they're being empathetic and say, look, I understand, but it is part of the process. We have to talk to each of you separately. And when they get separated, things start going downhill for them. They are not as sad anymore. They suddenly aren't as traumatized anymore. They aren't crying anymore. When they are crying, there are no tears. It's crocodile tears. And when they're asked about their mother, they talk very negatively of their deceased mother who was murdered in cold blood. And the police know that this tactic actually, it worked. It worked because when they're together, they were a force to be reckoned with. The police knew this. Nikki knew this. She said this to the police, that she was afraid of her two girls together. So by separating them, they immediately weakened the two of them, and therefore weakened the lies that they were planning to tell the police. Now, police knew that Nikki did not go down without a fight. They knew that she put up one heck of a fight from the condition. She had defensive wounds. She was very clearly in a brawl with whoever did this to her. Because of the state of the house alone, you could surmise that, but also the state of her body, you could tell that she did not go down without a fight. And remember how I told you one of the twins had been biting her arm as a nervous tick that she told the police? Well, the police, they're not buying it. So they actually decide to test the bite mark on her arm and compare it to Nikki's dental records, and they find that it is 100% a match. So the bite mark that was on the twin's arm belonged to Nikki Whitehead, not the twin herself. But not only this, y'all. In Nikki's teeth, they found human hair. And when I first heard this, I'm like, why would they find human hair? I'm thinking hair on your head. But they found human hair between her teeth because where she bit the twin on her arm, when she bit her hard enough that she took hair off of her arm. And from this, the bite mark being Nikki and the hair being in her teeth, that was confirmed by DNA to belong to the twins. They couldn't tell exactly which one from the DNA because they technically had the exact same DNA, but only one twin had a bite mark on her arm. They could deduce that this twin was most likely attacking Nikki from behind, strangling her in a way, and Nikki bit her in self-defense. So that was one of the first nails in the coffin of Taz and Jazz's terrible lie of what they did to Nikki. After some time had went by and police were able to accumulate enough evidence against Taz and Jazz Whitehead, they did arrest them on the last day of school of that same year. So about 5 or 6 months later, once they really were able to build their case against them, they were charged with felony murder. And the twins proclaimed their innocence for years. They claimed that they were innocent for a long time. Up until what point would you imagine? Yes, up until the point that it was time for trial, and the lawyers basically said to them, look, this doesn't make any sense. The evidence against you is so ridiculously overwhelming. You are so much better off taking a plea deal. And that is exactly what the two girls did in exchange for the full story of what happened between them and their mother that day. Police were willing to give them a reduced sentence of 30 years in prison. By agreeing to this plea, they were required to give the full disclosure of what happened between them and Nikki that day. And when they started to explain the brawl that happened between them and their mother, it is very gruesome and it's hard to even say. So if you don't want to hear the nitty-gritty details, I completely understand. Now is your time to click out because we pretty much gotten to the end, but this is the description of what the girls say happened between them and their mother on that day in January. According to the twins, that day they had woken up late for school and their mother was fed up with their behavior. So she came into one of their rooms. She had this red ceramic pot in her hand that she was waving around, basically threatening them, saying, you need to get up for school. I'm sick of this. This is an issue, and was threatening to hit one of the twins with the pot. And this twin was Jazz, and Jazz is woken up out her sleep, but she says, oh, you're not about to hit me with that pot. So she takes the pot out of Nikki's hand and she swings it and hits her in the head with the pot. At this point, Nikki is already bleeding, and Jazz explains the scene to be complete chaos, screaming, fighting, yelling, like it is chaotic, and she describes it to be a fight to the death. This wasn't a fight on the street, she says. This was a fight until one of us dies. In her sister's defense, Taz comes running into the room where she sees that Nikki, after having been hit in the head with the pot, is biting her sister Jazz, and she has her teeth latched onto her chest to cause pain and basically to get Jazz to stop hitting her with this pot. And while Nikki is latched onto her, Jazz is hitting her in the head. She's punching her in the head, trying to get her off of her. And Taz, who runs into the room, has a knife and begins stabbing Nikki in the back. After this, Jazz picks up the knife after she gets Nikki off of her and starts stabbing her again after Taz is done. And she takes a medallion that she won at school. You know how you get awards like medals on the thick string? She takes that from her room and begins strangling her mother with it. And again, the scene is complete chaos. They're throwing stuff, they're screaming, they're yelling, there's no blood everywhere. Can you just imagine an all-out brawl? These girls punching their mother, stabbing their mother, strangling their mother, hitting her with a pot. But I digress. At some point during this altercation, Nikki was actually able to escape the hands of her twin daughters, and she runs out of the house and she runs to her next door neighbor, where she's banging on the door, ringing the doorbell, and screaming for someone to please come help her. When the police went to this next door neighbor, they actually did confirm that that day he heard someone knocking on his door and ringing his doorbell, and he did hear a scream. But it was early in the morning. He didn't feel like being bothered. He was asleep, so he stayed in bed. But in hindsight, had he gotten up and went downstairs, he would have found Nikki fighting for her life against her daughters. And we know that she did this because there are blood footprints leaving her door, walking to the next door, and then of her being dragged back into her home. So the twins, after Nikki escaped, chased her outside and dragged her back into the house where they were going to finish what they had started. Before Nikki is actually dead, the twins pick her up by her shoulders and her legs and carry her into the bathtub, where they begin running the water for a reason that we still don't know to this day. We don't know if they were trying to drown her to finish the job, or if it was just because there was so much blood that they put her in the tub. But they put her in the tub, and at this point she's still alive. She's hanging on to the rest of the life that she has, and she's telling her girls, like, you're going to jail. What are you doing? Why would you do this? And the twins say that apparently she was saying, "I hate you," and just saying terrible things, which I don't know about you, but after I've been stabbed 80 times, I'm probably going to be saying some horrible things too. But the twins say that she was sitting in the tub, she went under and came back up a few times, went under the water, came back up a few times, and she wasn't just dying. Like, Nikki literally fought to the very last second. She has 80 stab wounds. She's been strangled. She's been knocked upside the head multiple times, dragged from her neighbor's house back into her house. There's blood all over the place, and she's still alive at this point. So that shows you the resilience that this woman had. But finally she does succumb to her injuries, and she's left in the bathtub, at which point Taz and Jazz come up with a plan of what they're going to do. They attempt to clean up some of the crime scene, and they get their story straight. They converse about what they're going to tell police when it does come time for questioning. And what they're actually hoping is that they can go to school, and someone, maybe her boyfriend or her husband, would have found her by the time they get off of school. So they were actually hoping that they wouldn't have to come back and face the reality of finding their mother in the condition that they had left her. But when they get off of school, they come home and they find her still in the bathtub, at which point they begin the charade of acting like they had absolutely no idea of what happened to their mother. The girls will be eligible for release from prison when they are in their 40s, which in my humble opinion is way too soon. But they also do say that they are remorseful for what they've done. They wish that they could go back in time and change things. They wish that they never let things get to the level that they got to, and that they actually really love their mother. Contrary to what other people say about them, they are very firm in the fact that they really do love their mom and they miss her, and they are sorry for what they've done. The jury is still out on whether I believe that or not, but it does seem like they have some sort of rationality and understanding of the gravity of what they have done. However, it can't be undone. And she wasn't a perfect mom. Nikki made her mistakes, but she didn't do anything to warrant being killed, let alone being killed in the way that she was killed. She was alive for all of it. She didn't get taken out on the first stab. She took 80 stab wounds at the hands of the children that she created. And when you take a second and picture the crime scene and picture them beating on their mom like this, it's just, I don't even, my brain just can't even process that. But yeah, that's the story. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comment section below. When I heard it, I was like, whoa. Unfortunately, they will be getting out of prison when they have a lot more life left to live. And part of me thinks that there's a crazy bone still left in there, but who am I to say? I had to get this video created and edited and posted quickly because, as you all know, it is Father's Day. So I got some stuff I got to do today, and I'm excited. I'm taking my dear old dad out for dinner with my sister. Everybody knows that's my guy. Like, I love my dad. But not only do I have a ton of stuff to do today, my air conditioner decided to break. And I'm very disappointed because I don't like being hot. Everybody knows I don't like being hot. I don't like being hot. In outside life, like in the office, at work, I don't like being cold. But when I'm home, I like being cold because I can bundle up and I can get under the blankets. And I love my AC. So me not having an AC right now is really just upsetting me. So I didn't even bother putting on makeup because I know I'm just going to be hot and sweat it off. But I'm gonna stop fussing. If you made it this far, you are loyal, you really are, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sticking to the end with me today. I hope you have a wonderful morning or afternoon or evening, depending on what time it is when you see this video. And try to do something productive this week. Set a goal and go achieve it. Go do something good for you. All right, I'm done. Peace.